Well, we'll probably not see the impact of this on the market until tomorrow. But essentially, I think the big news coming from Abuja is that the Bankers Committee met today and there was a decision taken. The central bank and the banks are coming together to pretty much fund the operations of AMCON. And like you said, the idea is for all banks to levy 0.3% of total assets from 2011 all the way to 2020. So over a 20-year period, banks will be providing money into this fund. The central bank also will be adding 50 billion annually to the fund. That's news we're getting from Abuja. And essentially what this means is that the whole uncertainty about how AMCON will be funded seems to be coming out of the way right now, because that has been the view of many analysts. How will AMCON just doesn't seem to have the capacity to bail out these banks. As you know, AMCON's capitalization is clearly not enough to meet the bailouts that is necessary for the bank. So that's the breaking news from out here. The banks and the central bank are coming together to fund AMCON.
Okay, so the AMCON's initial capitalization was for 20 billion, so this should add and boost that capacity for them to soak up bad debts. But what do we read into this, Wale? Because one of the biggest controversies has been the rights of shareholders to lead and direct the process of recapitalizing the rescued banks. And although the central bank has said, yes, they have autonomy, they will only come in once there are clear liquidity problems, and if the process has failed, they will have to liquidate. But initially, that's not the option. What are shareholders in general? What's the shareholder lobby saying about some of these measures? Do we read this as a buy-in?
Well, I think the whole issue of how shareholders and the individual banks are going to sort out the issues with regards to recapitalization will really come on an individual basis with each bank. But essentially what the central bank has said is that the banks have the prerogative to recapitalize on their own. And I think the sticky issue really has been the way the central bank has intervened in the banks. Like we had some shareholder association representatives on the program yesterday, essentially highlighting the point that the central bank, yes, have the prerogative to remove management, but do not have the prerogative to change and to replace management. That prerogative should have been left with the board. So I think over time we will see how that issue plays out. But assuming that everything works out, AMCON working on its own, I think we're beginning to get a little more clarity on how that is going to play out. Another point to note really is that from that meeting, I think the conservative estimate for what AMCON will have to provide in terms of a bailout is about 800 billion. So if we have a sinking fund that it's going to raise up to 1 trillion or possibly 1.5 trillion, obviously that's going to have the capacity to sort out the banking crisis, I think is obviously there. So obviously this is a big news, and I think over time we'll hear the analysts' impressions on this.
All right, Wale, we'll leave it there. Tell us more about what's happening with Lagos becoming a megacity. Right,
Lagos State, obviously that's probably one of the more progressive states in Nigeria. We've seen the administration of Governor Raji Fashola making significant moves to improve the infrastructure of the state and obviously to attract investments. And joining us in the studio today to give us some perspective on how the government is funding that move is Mr. Ade Ipaye, who is the Special Assistant to the Governor on Taxation and Revenue. You're very welcome to the program. So can you just give us some insight into that, the Lagos State Model Megacity project? What's that all about?
Well, I would say so-called megacity project is an idea placed upon us by the sheer fact that we have a population that is well in excess of 10 million. In fact, our population is in excess of 18 million.
Right, we've heard that figure.
And as we are all aware, Lagos State is the smallest in terms of land area in Nigeria, which means that we have serious management issues, road traffic management, housing management, even education, health. This is going to impact on all sectors. And to deal with that, we have to institute a program of accelerated infrastructure development, which is exactly what Governor Fashola's administration has been about. So you see that we are focused on building more roads so that we have better linkages, improve the transportation system. At the same time, reconstruct a lot of our schools, which had become quite dilapidated. But they're all being reconstructed now. We're providing equipment, furniture, even books for the students.
Right.
And then, of course, in the health sector, a lot of reconstruction going on, a lot of new health facilities. And we think that this must proceed for now because it's just the only way by which we can then successfully cope with the population that we have on hand right now.
Because we're running a bit out of time, but just to highlight some of the points here on how exactly you're going to fund this. Obviously, the light rail project is one big one. I had an estimate that it's going to cost about $3 billion.
Yes.
How is Lagos State looking to fund all these projects?
Basically, we are becoming more and more self-reliant every day. We've been able to grow our internally generated revenue. At the moment, we are around about 15 billion on a monthly basis.
And that's about from taxes?
Yeah, from taxes, essentially from taxes. That's about 2/3 of total revenues. Federal transfers would account for the remnant. Now, having that level of internally generated revenue also gives us the capacity to seek external funding. We have the bond issues that are going on. We have some borrowings, of course. We have support from the World Bank. And then we are very keen on PPP, that is public-private partnerships, so that a lot of the major infrastructural development projects that we're embarking upon will be in partnership with private sector investors and operators who will be looking to be in it with us for the long term, and will be taking their profits as we go along. So we think with a combination of PPP, internally generated revenues, federal transfers, and some local borrowing and some international borrowing, we can pull it through.
Okay, so just very quickly, taxes, obviously, how have you been able to get that generation coming?
Yes, the focus has been on extending the capacity. What I mean by that is that we're achieving greater efficiencies in collection. We are having greater coverage.
But how are you doing that? Is it putting more people on the road, or exactly what are you doing?
A lot of things. One, getting people to be aware of the need to pay taxes and the fact that we simply cannot develop without them. We get some response, and therefore government is able to do more. And we have seen clearly that the more government is able to do, the more people become receptive to the need to pay taxes. So we are having a lot of voluntary compliance, more than ever before. We think that the more government is able to do, the more we will be able to get voluntary compliance. Right, but at the same time, of course, we're improving the machinery, the administrative machinery, so that we're able to catch the evaders.
Right. So sorry, I have to jump in there. We're really running out of time.
Okay.
But thank you so much for that insight on how you're working things out.
My pleasure.